My name is Lucas Bennett, and I am 28 years old. 3 weeks ago, my fiancée told me her parents would not be at our wedding. She said it like it was nothing. I smiled. I nodded. Then I found their phone number anyway, and I called them myself. The next morning, my fiancée's mother called me back, crying. Claire turned pale when she found out what I'd done. Before I tell you what happened next, please hit like and subscribe. Drop your city and local time below. I love knowing where you're listening from. Now let me take you back to 6 years ago, when my grandfather said something I didn't understand until last month. I grew up in my grandfather's house, a small 2-story home that smelled like cedar and old coffee. Every Sunday, he'd make eggs and tell me the same thing while we ate. People who hide the truth from you are usually hiding it from themselves first. I didn't understand that then. I was 22, freshly graduated, still learning how to read people. My grandfather, Walter, was the only steady thing I had. My parents divorced when I was 9. My mother remarried a man named Russell who saw me as a line item, not a son. Russell wore expensive watches and talked about investments at dinner. My mother laughed at his jokes a beat too late, like she was performing comfort instead of feeling it, but my grandfather's house was different. The floorboards creaked in the same 2 spots, always near the kitchen doorway, always under the window. His hands were rough, cracked from decades of woodworking, and he kept a cigar box on his shelf that smelled like tobacco and machine oil. He never let me open it. Not yet, he'd say. You'll know when. I met Claire 2 years ago at a friend's barbecue. She was quiet, careful with her words, the kind of person who watched a room before she spoke in it. We fell in love. Slowly, the way good things do. When I asked her about her parents, she'd change the subject. We are not close, she'd say. It's complicated. I let it go. People have complicated families. I had Russell. My grandfather passed 8 months ago. Pneumonia, then his heart. I sat by his hospital bed and held his hand, and the last thing he said to me was, "Check the box, Lucas. When it's time." I didn't know what that meant. I still don't. Fully understand grief, how it sits in your chest like a stone you carry without complaint. I went back to that house and felt something was wrong, though I had no power to name it yet. After my grandfather died, Russell changed. He stopped calling him your grandfather and started calling him the estate. My mother used words like liquidation and probate timeline at dinner, the same table where we used to eat my grandfather's eggs. That's the word they use for everything that used to be love. Estate. One night, I came downstairs for water and heard them in the kitchen. Russell was talking low, the way people talk when they think no one's listening. The house alone is worth $400,000, he said, plus whatever's in those accounts. Lucas doesn't even know what he has. My mother said, he's grieving, Russell. Give it time. Time costs money, he said. I stood in the hallway, barefoot on cold tile, and said nothing. I went back upstairs. I filed it away. I started visiting my grandfather's house alone on weekends, just to maintain it, mowing the lawn, checking the pipes, dusting the shelf where the cigar box still sat, untouched. I didn't tell Russell I still had a key. I didn't tell anyone. Around that same time, Claire grew distant. She'd take calls in another room. When I asked who it was, she'd say, "Just family stuff," and her face would close like a door. Have you ever had to stay silent to protect yourself even when every part of you wanted to speak up? Tell me in the comments. I read them. I realized something during those quiet weekends. I had become invisible to Russell and my mother. They talked business in front of me like I wasn't in the room. I decided invisibility wasn't weakness. It was information. People tell you everything when they think you're not listening. 2 months ago, I finally opened the cigar box. Inside was a letter in my grandfather's handwriting, a small brass key, and a business card for a man named Arthur Pell, attorney. The letter said, "Lucas, if you're reading this, it's time. Arthur knows everything. Trust him." The house and accounts were never in the estate Russell thinks he can touch. I moved everything into a trust 3 years ago, the day after I heard him on the phone calling me an inconvenience with good real estate. Go see Arthur. I sat on the floor of that kitchen for a long time. I called Arthur the next day. He was calm, precise, the kind of man who'd clearly done this before. "Your grandfather came to me 3 years ago," he said. "He didn't trust your mother's husband. He restructured everything into an irrevocable trust with you as sole beneficiary. Russell and your mother have no legal claim, not to the house, not to the accounts. They never did. I asked why my grandfather never told me. He wanted you to grieve without complication, Arthur said. And he wanted to see who showed their true face when they thought no one was watching. A week later, I overheard Russell on the phone again, this time with a real estate agent. We are listing the house mid-March, he said. Probate should clear by then. Asking $420, maybe $450 if the market holds. He had a date, a number, a plan already built on a foundation that didn't exist. I texted Arthur 2 words, it's time. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button because this story is about to turn. That night, Russell and my mother went to sleep certain they had won something. I lay awake knowing they had never had it to begin with. It was 11:50 p.m. when I sat down at my grandfather's old desk and signed the final paperwork Arthur had sent over, accepting the trust formally, transferring the deed into my name outright. 12:03 a.m. I am 28. I am the owner of my grandfather's house, and across town, Russell was asleep, dreaming about a listing date in March. He'd find out the truth in about 11 days. That weekend was my mother's birthday dinner. Russell pulled me aside near the hallway, away from the table, his voice low and friendly in a way that didn't reach his eyes. Listen, he said. About the house. We are moving for... ... It's not yours to sell, I said. It hasn't been for 3 years. He went still. I watched the friendliness drain off his face like water down a drain. What are you talking about? He said. Grandpa moved everything into a trust. I'm the sole beneficiary. Arthur Pell handled it. You can call him if you want the paperwork. He looked at me like I was still the person he thought I was. I wasn't. I hadn't been for 8 months. My mother came over, saw his face, and asked what was wrong. Russell didn't answer. He just stared at me, calculating numbers that no longer existed. I didn't gloat. I didn't raise my voice. I picked up my drink, said happy birthday to my mother, and walked back to the table. 3 days later, I called Claire's parents myself. I'd found their number in an old contact she'd forgotten to delete from a shared family group chat months ago. Her mother answered, hesitant at first, then crying within a minute, not from sadness. My grandfather used to say, people who hide the truth from you are usually hiding it from themselves first. I always thought he meant strangers, distant relatives, people far away from us. He meant Russell. He meant my mother. He meant, eventually, even Claire. Russell never got the house. The listing he'd planned never happened. He and my mother are still married, though dinners are quieter now. There's nothing left to calculate. Arthur still checks in on me twice a year, more out of habit than necessity. As for me, I still have the house. I still hear those 2 creaky floorboards every time I walk through it. I think about my grandfather every time I make eggs on a Sunday morning, and I think, the people who protect you don't always explain themselves. Sometimes they just leave you a key and trust you to find the door. Claire and I are still figuring things out. Her parents came to dinner last week for the first time in years. If you've ever had to stay quiet to protect something you loved, I want to hear your story. Tell me in the comments, and if this story moved you, subscribe.